Good evening, everybody, to the Emmitsburg Town Council meeting for Monday, March 3rd. Tonight, we have a couple members absent. Commissioner Amy Bowen Powlett absent and Commissioner Cliff Sweeney will be absent tonight. So I'll be sitting in presiding the meeting. Do have an announcement to make to start off with. The Board of Commissioners will be holding a closed executive session following this meeting to consider acquisition of real property for public purposes. It matters directly related thereof. The authority for the meeting in closed session for this purpose is permitted by the general provisions of Article Section 3-305 B3 in the Dade Code of Maryland, which authorizes us to meet in closed session to discuss possible purchase of a vacant property on South Seaton Avenue. That we call the meeting to order, and I invite everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Future meetings for the town of Emmitsburg, the Planning Commission meeting will be held on March 31st, 2025 at 7 p.m. here at the town office and on Zoom. Also, the Board of Commissioners next meeting will be April the 7th, 2025 at 7 p.m. and again here at the town office and on Zoom. For meeting items tonight, we have approval of the minutes for February 3rd and for February 10th. Do we have a motion to accept one or both of the?
I make a motion to accept both as presented.
Do we have a second
I have a couple of questions or changes, just minor updates.
on both or one of them?
I think both.
Okay.
Definitely the first one. Let me see about the second one.
All right, well, I just want to see if we can approve one of them or not, but
Yeah, both.
okay. All right, well then, let's hear what changes you have. Let's start with February 3rd, Dan, if you can.
Yeah, like I said, minor changes on page 4 of 87 under the town manager's report, that first paragraph. Right in the middle of that paragraph, it says contractor pumped out the backwash pond at the water treatment plant. And then the next sentence is a repeat of that. So if we could just take out the second part of that.
Okay.
And then under at the bottom portion under Commissioner Turnquist, it says second line was rewarded in 2021, change that to was awarded. And then 2 bullets down, if the town has received any reimbursements for DePaul Street, change grant 23-13 to 23-18. And then page 9 of 87, middle of the page, the church, which came out to 3,800, should be 38,000. It's a bullet right about in the middle of the page, starting with the numbers seem fair and equitable. And that's all I have for February 3rd.
Okay.
Do you want me to go to February 10th?
Yes.
Page 17 of 87, that first paragraph, if we could just clarify it, I'm not sure what we're trying to convey. I just think it needs a little bit of clarification. And that's all I have for the minutes, but I do appreciate the level of detail. It's fabulous, so thank you. To Sabrina, who's handling the minutes. They look amazing.
Does that give staff clarification enough for that paragraph? All right, so then do I have a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
Motion to accept as amended.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Vote passes 3-0. Agenda here. What page here? Lost my agenda page. Thank you. I lost mine. I'll find it here in a second. All right, the next item we have is police report.
For February 2025, still myself and Deputy Bartholow. We used 1.5 days of holiday annual leave, 4 days of sick leave, no staffing changes. We're all up to date on our training. No fleet issues this month with our vehicles. We handled 148 calls for service. We had 1 arrest and 37 traffic stops. Completed 2 win cards. Calls worth highlighting. There was a burglary at Harrington and Sons. It's under investigation by the Criminal Investigation Unit. And that is all I have for you.
Thank you. Any question for deputy's report? Thank you, sir. Next item on the agenda is town manager's report.
Good evening. This is the town manager's report for January of 2025. I'll just highlight some key areas related to streets. Staff and contractors responded to a couple of snow events. Staff rewired and put a new street light that was damaged on West Main Street at South Seaton Avenue. Related to the park, the contractor continues to work on the sewer, or the contractor worked on the sewer line at the concession stand. And obviously the new building was set by ball field number 3. It's in its final stages. It should be wrapping up in the next week or 2. Related to wastewater, we treated an average of 585,709 gallons per day and consumed 240,406 gallons per day, which meant 58.95% of the wastewater treated in the month of January was wild water. We had no spills of untreated sewage. However, we did exceed the plant design capacity 3 days that month. We only received 0.8 inches of precipitation in January. At the time of this report, we had a deficit of 2.64 inches over the last 6 months. Related to water, Rainbow Lake is at the spillway level of 16.6 feet. On the third bullet point, you'll see the well levels. The wells did drop a little bit in January. However, that was mainly due to hydrant flushing. They have recovered since then. Page 21, water production and consumption. We produced an average of 240,060 gallons per day and consumed 240,406 gallons per day. The amount of backwash water in the month of January was roughly 14.4%. Trash pickup will remain Mondays during the month of March. Page 22, I highlighted some of the meetings I attended in January. Just a few noteworthy items. In January, staff repaired a water leak on West Main Street. We conducted the yearly maintenance on all the town's fire extinguishers. The water plant experienced high flows from several residences, pipes freezing and bursting, as well as 2 bad leaks at FEMA and the Provincial House. And staff continues to attend progress meetings on the DePaul Street water line, the pump station, as well as the kickoff meeting for the West Main and Waynesboro Pike water line. That's my report.
Grant administrators or town operating?
Basically, everything's the same. On page 25, you'll see Ms. Shaw is in the process. She applied for additional funding through the Maryland capital budget that takes some delegate and senator support. So we asked for $1 million for additional funding for the North Seaton Avenue improvements. And she will be completing the MDE MWIFA funding for $2.573 million for the remaining funds that are needed for the North Seaton Avenue waterline project.
And the town operations specialist report.
Oh, sorry. I had another highlighted on the Grand Administrator's Report for 26. Number 2, that's additional funding for the North Seaton Avenue water line, as well as number 4. We have a lot of pots of money we can pull in for the North Seaton Avenue project, so she's applying for many grants on that. We did receive number 5 for program open space. We did receive an email today from the state. As we've all heard, the state's budget is in dire straits. So they think one of the first pots of money that will be restricted will be program open space, which we typically apply for every year.
Right.
Okay, that's the report then.
Okay. Down to town operations specialist.
Wayfinder sign should be installed by the end of March. Ms. Maloka is working with our town planner on a Main Street grant to replace the brick wall around the bulletin board at 22 East Main Street. It's starting to look weathered. The first Edmondsburg Neighborhood Meals is March 12th. It's sponsored by the town office. Mayor Davis is currently absent today. He is doing the mayor's 24-hour challenge in front of the Vigilant Hose Company. Ms. Maloka worked with that on him. They are working on a brick walkway at the new concession stand. People will be able to buy a brick in honor or in memoriam of somebody and have a brick placed along the sidewalk at the new concession stand. And she just recently attended FEMA training, local volunteer and donations management in DC last week. That's that report.
Town planners.
Good evening. This is a town planner support. Listed a few applicants that I helped with their zoning permit applications, and then processed 4 zoning permit applications. And related to developments, Federal Stone is under construction. There was a slight modification to their improvement plans that related to their roof drain system, and it has been approved by the town engineer in the county. And Seton Village subdivision plats were submitted to the court for recordation. Emmitsburg Distillery developer has temporarily paused the project. And Emmett Ridge, the forest delineation, forest conservation and preliminary plans were conditionally approved by the Planning Commission on February 24th. And we coordinated with Frederick County Public Schools to conduct school adequacy test. And then I'll mention Brookfield Phase 5, the improvement plans were conditionally approved by the Planning Commission on February 24th. And in the pipeline, we have the Civil War Memorial. The developer is submitting, will be submitting a text amendment application to allow the project in the CR zoning district. And we also met with Third Pillar Solar regarding solar panels at the wastewater treatment plant. It's just an ongoing discussion. Nothing is set in stone yet. Related to text amendments, conducted research and assisted in drafting the following ordinances: student housing, rental registration, and non-residential water and sewer tap fees. MS4, the tree planting project is ongoing, and comprehensive plan is in progress and will be reviewed by the county and the state. Under grants, the community legacy grant is going for FY25 is going on. The due date for property owners has been extended to March 31st. And reimbursement request for FY24 community legacy grant has been submitted. And we're working on a grant with the grant administrator to receive funding from the Chesapeake Bay Trust for the North Seaton Green Street project. And I listed the meetings that I attended during the month of February. And that's my report.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is commissioner comments. Commissioner Hagan, any comments?
Just as we're starting to work on the farmer's market, we're going to be looking for volunteers to help out, with crafts or from children's activities. So if anyone's interested, reach out to Ms. Maloko or myself. We're going to start trying to put that together before it gets there. And if anyone hasn't been out yet, visit the mayor and stop by and make a donation, or at least, congratulate him for the work that he's doing out there in the cold. I encourage you to go out and meet him.
I don't have anything.
Thank you. I also don't have anything at this time, and the mayor is absent, so we'll move on to public comments. Signed up, I have Jack Weller.
Okay, I'd like to say, well, anyway, when we talk up here, what do we?
Well, if you can,
Oh yeah, I'm Jack Weller. I'm not an Emmitsburg resident, but I live nearby,
got you.
close enough. So what can we talk about up here? I mean, is this an open forum, or is it just town business? When you're talking here under public comments,
It's public comments to make any comments you want to make, but it's just comments, it's not public discussion.
okay. Well, anyway, I'll just stick with town business here, I guess. Is there the red trail? Is it soon done?
Spring.
The red trail.
Yes.
Yeah, the red trail up on the mountain. It's it's a
okay.
walking trail for
Understood.
the hiking and whatnot.
All right, she says spring.
Okay. And if you see a tree that's leaning bad and it's going to hit the line and maybe hit somebody that's in a car, is there any way we could get someone to cut it down? And I'm talking about up by Crystal Fountain Road. There's a tree that's definitely going to come down and hit the bars, and it's going to hit the road. And of course, we had the guy was killed in 22 out on 77 when we had the windstorm in December. So that's another thing I was thinking about, that who do we get a hold of to do that? Or,
Start with town staff.
okay, because I don't know if it's on your land or not.
I don't,
Yeah, but it's near Crystal Fountain Road. It's on the left side going up.
okay, so we'll start with town staff, and if they're determined whether it's ours or not.
Okay. And I wondered if any of the funding that is we get, the town gets, has been impacted by this rigmarole going on in Washington with the Doge stuff. I mean, is that a problem? Like, it wasn't part of the Clarifier project, money from the federal government?
That's a state-funded project.
Oh, it's state.
It has not been cut yet. We have not had any effects as of yet. Doesn't mean it won't happen, but not as of yet.
Okay. And I guess the last thing I wanted to ask was the Civil War was mentioned, the Civil War Memorial. Where is the idea that this would be? I mean, what is the location? I haven't, I don't know.
We're waiting on a site plan. So for what he's developing and what he proposes developing. So we're waiting on a site plan.
So there's no area.
Well, at this point it'd be on the other side of Route 15 if unless that's changed.
Near Rudders.
It's between 15 and Harney Road.
Oh,
Across from the hotel.
okay. Well, then I guess I'm done then.
And we're waiting,
Thank you.
we're waiting on a site plan to go from there.
Okay.
Proposal.
Thank you.
Ms. Susie Glass,
I'd like to keep my comments for Andrew,
I thought you would. All right. The next item we have on our is administrative business. So it's discussion related to the EV charging stations. Ms. Willard, I guess, is that you or?
I can. So basically, we have 4 EV chargers, level 2 charging stations. They were totally grant funded back in 2018. They came with 5 years of maintenance and repair and that all ended in 2023. At this point, staff is still investigating when they were put in. We are under the impression that credit cards could be added, but we don't have the capability as now. So staff is still working with that with the manufacturer. If they need to be upgraded, we're going to look for grants to upgrade if that's the direction the board wants to go in. As of March 1st, the EV charging stations will all be on the solar account. Potomac Edison kind of dragged their feet with adding them to the net metering account, but they are on there now. So we'll have a better idea of what they will cost the town after they've been in place for a month or two. And we can see basically with the solar, it takes away all your fees, all your charges, and that bill should drop dramatically. Below that, you'll see how much we've paid for the EV charges since July of 23. You can see that up until about June of 24, the usage was pretty nominal. However, usage has increased since about June of last year. So it's costing the town anywhere between about $354 to $583 at the EV stations now. That should drop dramatically after they've been on the solar account for a month or two.
Okay, and I assume that once we come back with upgrading the credit cards or not, then that'll come back to the board for discussion, or however we go from there.
Right. So after we can do an update to this, after we see what the impact of adding it to the solar accounts is, what that does to the bill, and then the board can decide how they want to proceed. We can bring you an update in maybe 3 months.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you. Next on here is the consent agenda. So we have 4 items on the consent agenda, which is the following of the 2024 Annual Planning Commission Report for item 1, item 2, consideration for appointment for Solace. See it here somewhere. No. To the Sustainable Communities Work Group, and also item 3 is to appoint the same person to alternate for Planning Commission Committee for the term of March 3rd, 2025 to March 3rd, 2029, and for consideration for reappointment to Martin Miller on the Citizens Advisory Committee with a term of March 13th, 2025 to March 13th, 2027. Is there any objections to voting on these items all together, or do we want to separate them?
Together is fine.
All right, so do we have a motion to accept it?
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda in totality.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
All right, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, this is 3-0.
Commissioner Hoover, I wanted to let you know that Mayor Davis is in fact on Zoom if anybody has any questions for him.
Since I skipped over him for mayor's comments, does he have any mayor's comments?
Hey, good evening. No, I'm all bundled in here for the night, so if you have any.
His comments are short. Should be on Zoom more often.
Hello?
Hello? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I got you. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. We didn't get your comments from earlier.
Oh, okay. That's okay. No, I really don't have anything. I'll be out here until 8 tomorrow morning. So anybody that didn't get to stop by, please do so.
See you at 4:30
I'll see you here.
as I go through. All right. Thank you, sir. Next agenda item, we have treasurer's report.
So the cash balance as of February 1st, 2025 is $8,265,276. Deposits of $268,378. We withdrew $468,917, equaling an operating balance forward of $8,064,737. The top 10 checks are there in the middle of the page. The actual fund breakdown as of February 24th, 2025. In our general fund, we have 2.08 million. Capital projects, 516,000. Stormwater management, $8,227. Water fund, 11,608. ARPA, 2.21 million. Sewer fund, 3.18 million, for a total of $8,026,402. That's all.
Thank you. And our next agenda item is planning commission report. And as was stated earlier, for that was, we gave conditional acceptance to both developments, Brookfield Development for the, I believe, the last remaining 15 lots or so. There's conditional acceptance on that, and also conditional acceptance on the Emmett Ridge new development for the, I believe it's 48 homes. For Brookfield, the primary thing there is really, well, there was some engineering comments, whatever. There was no major items on theirs. For Emmett Ridge, I meant to say the major thing there was schools. So Frederick County stepped in for the schools to make sure that there was adequate space within the school for the amount of houses being there. And we also put a condition on there for the culvert that goes across Irish Town Road to make sure it was inspected and verified that is within good condition and good standing, and that it would not be a burden to the town later. And the developer has to take care of both of those issues as needed. And that's all I have for the planning commission. So that leads us to our agenda items. And first agenda item is for discussion and consideration approval of ordinance 25-03, amended town code to establish rental registration program. And Ms. Glass, you want to take that yet? Okay, all right. Well, I'm going to open it up with, I'm going to make the recommendation that we table this item tonight, and for the main purpose of is that my concern is, and I talked with staff and I talked to town attorney, and the concern is that it requires that that as the properties are inspected, on the day that they are inspected, that they must meet current Frederick County building code requirements. My concern with that is that there's probably not a lot of, my opinion, my personal opinion, is there's probably not a whole lot of properties in town that are not going to meet today's code for some one thing or another. And I just want to, before we enforce that as a town ordinance, then the town is enforced, then the town would then be required, and the staff would be required to then enforce the new current code on those. I think we're going to have a lot of issues with it, to where we're going to have to look at that, some different terminology to do there for that. And I've talked to the town attorney a little bit in discussions, and we're sure we'll have future discussions of that, but that's my major concern of why I'm recommending we table it. And then before the town attorney steps in, does anybody else have any major issues or concerns that you want to bring to the attorney's issue? Or do you want to proceed with the discussion and vote on it in the end?
I mean, I'm definitely in going over it. I think we need to still do a lot of work on this.
Okay.
Yet before,
So you say you're in favor of table it?
yes.
Yeah, I think we should table it as well. Page 42 of 87, that outlines where can you have a boarding house? Where can you have senior housing, apartments? Where can you have student housing? We have different types of housing all over town that doesn't line up with where those properties are allowed. And I think we're opening up a can of worms. I think this is going to be a nightmare. I think it's going to cause a lot of evictions. Once the code is enforced. And, I'm concerned about our overreach and how can we arrive at our goal through a different manner, maybe, providing tenant protections. And I'm concerned as well about the building codes and, what do those codes look like? And, the enforcement's going to be a big part of it. So I do have a lot of concerns that I think we should table it until the other commissioners are here and we can address some of those questions.
Okay, so with having it with, I think we're all in favor of that. So then having it, I'm going to ask then any questions that you may have, if you can forward, put an email together to say, or concerns, I shouldn't say questions, but questions or concerns that you may have, if you can create an email individually and send that to town staff and the mayor of your concerns so that they can appropriately address that and provide it to the attorney to review and just consider. So that we can have those, so we're not at the table the next month or 2 months or whenever, having a complete rehash over and over and over again.
Yeah, I would like to hear after we hear from the attorney, I would like to hear from Susie Glass
She's-
to hear her concerns.
Certainly,
She will
yes.
get- she will get that.
She should get that opportunity.
She has to wait a minute.
I mean, I don't have really any comments. I stood up just about the one thing I did want to walk out of here with was a sense of direction in terms of what you wanted us to do from here with your concerns. And it sounds like your proposal is to filter them through staff and then take another crack at it.
That's, for me, that's my best recommendation at this time. I mean, unless somebody thinks differently, but I think, while they're sitting at home, whatever, if we can formulate some comments, concerns, or questions so that then we can get a fair assessment of what the concerns are and hopefully have a better draft or whatever that covers all those concerns. So with the next time we review it and have it, we've addressed those concerns in writing.
Okay.
And hopefully it's just a review and a thank you for the good work.
And so I guess the one other thing then that I would just put out there for you to consider in coming up with your comments, if the building code is a concern,
Correct.
which I understand where you're coming from with that. There will need to be some standard in place, a standard that town staff can readily apply.
I agree.
So just if simply referring to the Frederick County Building Code is over inclusive, we are going to have to figure out some standard or definition to use. And so in coming up with comments and feedback, I would just
I'll try and put together something for that, but off the top of my head, what I'm really thinking is that I'm more worried about life safety things. I mean, today's standard of life safety, sprinkler system is probably going to have to be, that's going to be a major impact. We say, to meet today's state requirement, putting sprinklers, I don't think it's going to be realistic. But life safety, rather, smoke detectors, fire alarms, exits, entrances, or whatever that are safe to get in and safe to get out. People aren't living in a basement with no window or no way to get out in emergency. But that would be my biggest concern. If those are covered, then the plumbing, the electrical, and the things of that nature. If we go back 10, 20 years and say, I don't know, maybe the last time they upgraded, rehabbed the house or something. I'm not quite sure how to handle that.
sure. And
Where do we draw the line at what building code is acceptable and what building code is
right.
long enough ago that you should have done something by now?
Right. But that's ultimately the decision that is going to have to be made.
agree.
So the more specificity and clarity, or the more fully formed the thought on that particular issue is, the more helpful it will be to us to try to then take that and craft a workable definition.
And I'll make an effort to come in and talk with town staff and kind of figure
That-
how to fairly address that and not have it to the point that it's somewhat unenforceable.
Okay.
Because it's going to be a nightmare. If we can't enforce it, there's no sense putting it in place. And if it's unrealistic, there's also no reason to put it in place.
That's all I
The
had.
goal is
So,
not to put everybody out of business.
Ms. Glass?
Ms. Glass,
You-
hopefully that answers some of your concerns.
I guess. I'm Susie Glass. I live at 239 North Seaton. My house is 100 years old. Lived there forever. I've lived here forever and I'm going to be 72 years old. I am one of the owners of the Odd House, which has been in business for 54 years. maybe almost 55 down, sorry.
There you go.
I'm also part of a family business. It's called Odd Rentals. We own the buildings on Square where the restaurant is. We also own many other rentals in town. In our apartment building, I'm very proud to say that it's a lovely building and we do well with it and we keep it up very well. And you were just saying about people making sure they have their smoke detectors. I just had a visit from two firefighters. They said they are from the fire marshal's office 2 weeks ago to go in through the building. And they, I thought maybe it was Frank sending, because he's trying to get everything up, and that's great. And we weren't bothered. We let them in the building and they inspected. And I think we had, they did the hallways and the one emergency light. I think we had to put a new light in there when one was out. And then they said they were going to come back and re-inspect. And if we didn't have it the way it was supposed to be, they would charge us $150. So I had an appointment, they didn't come back. And then when they made a new appointment, they didn't come. And they just recently sent us a bill for the first building for $75. So I don't know where that's coming from or whatever, but
I have no clue.
there is someone doing something about making sure you have your smoke detectors and things like that all up to date. And so that was just one thing. It's kind of hard for me to say anything because you really haven't decided what you're going to do. So I can't argue with you about something that I really don't know what's going to be on the agenda. But if you look, there's so many things that you have in your own pocket. If you would just reach in and get them out. You have the garbage bills. Every unit that we have is listed on your garbage bills. So if there's 17 units across the square, we have to pay you. If we had to pay you for 17 garbage. So that how many apartments we have. It's listed right there in the garbage bill. I know the people up the street. In fact, he's sitting in here. They have 2 units, and they're charged for 2 units in their garbage bill. So it's there if you look. It's just, and as far as registering, I don't think there's a problem with you registering your apartment there. I think it'll be a lot of problem with you coming to me and say you want in my building. It's one thing to be in my hallway, but I don't know if I'm going to take you into my apartments. Now, I don't even go to in my tenants' apartments. I'll make an appointment with them. Of course, we have monthly the bug man comes, and one of us walks with them at all times to go to the apartments. But there's privacy acts as well. So there's things like that. Our building's 200 years old. So even with all the upkeep and all the changes we've made and all the things the towns want, it's still 200 years old. So, I mean, if you dig enough, you'll probably find something.
I agree.
We do rent to students. You have different rentals all the time. I have 2 coaches that live in one apartment right now, 2 ladies, and they work at Mount St. Mary's. They pay their rent with 2 separate checks. I have lots of people. I have a couple that went in as a couple. They pay me separate checks. Sorry. And then they're married now, but they still pay me separate checks. So, there's lots of things people do differently nowadays. It's not everything isn't out of one thing. And talking about the boarding houses, I don't really think we have any boarding houses in town. Have you ever been in the grocery store and see the kids shop for groceries? They shop all together. Sure, I'm sure they might have one beer that's their kind of beer in the refrigerator or whatever, their mayonnaise or something else, but they still shop together. They cook together. Even on campus, they cook together. Just, there's a lot of things.
Once we get back to it, then we'll,
well, I
as you
just
say,
want
then we'll have
I
a
just
better
want to tell you,
understanding
right.
of the ordinance.
Correct.
So we'll have a
One,
clearer written.
yeah, this weekend I had one gentleman come in. He came for a lacrosse game. He graduated from the Mount. He rented a room at the hotel. He had breakfast at the Palms. He had lunch at Odd House. He went to the game and then he came back afterwards. That's one person.
Right.
I was packed all weekend. So all my retail sales money comes back to this community. So every time those kids go to the grocery store or the liquor store or my restaurant, gas station, everywhere, they're all spending money. But the Mount is done is great. Listen, I can go to a basketball game. Can't do that in town, but I can do it at the Mount. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, our next agenda item for consideration is approval FY 24 budget transfer has been tabled. We got an email about that previously. So that puts us down to discussion ordinance 25-04 water and sewer connection fees. Three. Okay. Commissioners, anybody have any discussion? On the water and sewer connection fee that's proposed here this evening?
Commissioner, it is only a discussion item, so it's not a
Thank you.
action item.
Thank you for that reminder.
I
You're
had
ready to
a
vote.
few comments.
Yes, ma'am.
For the first pass, I think the ordinance is great. On page, beginning on page 60 of 87. Well, it's mainly page 61, where we start with the different kind of establishments, hotels, laundry, self-service, auto repair. If we could just alphabetize those, I think it'll make it easier to find something on the list that we're looking for. And then somewhere in here, I'll have to find it, there was mention of reevaluating after a year. Maybe part 3, if the number of ERUs was based on historical, or this is page 63 of 87, number 3. If it was based on historical or estimated water usage data, and in any other case as determined by the town shall review the water use or sewer use after the 1-year anniversary. So would that only apply to businesses that aren't on the list?
That is the intent, yes.
Okay. That makes sense. I think that's all I had. I mean, we've talked about it a lot. We've gone over it a lot. I think the ordinance is well written. I think our lower end properties without a lot of consumption will pay less, and then our higher users will pay more according to their estimated usage. So I think it's a fair system, and that's all I have.
Commissioner Hagan?
I think it's come a long way, and I like the direction that it's moving in and getting some of the detail in there to address, some of our concerns with how we've handled in the past. It's still, in the end, I want to see what the numbers pan out under each way to see what the financial impact could be. If we lower the water, if this ends up lowering what we're charging and everything, how does it hit our budget?
We did that at the last meeting. We did a
Okay.
comparison of ones that we had done previously and then what they would look like under this new capacity adjustment factor. Didn't we do it at the last meeting? Yes.
Yes.
at the last
Yeah,
meeting.
I think maybe off of that list at the last meeting, the distillery was not there.
That's because we don't have anything on them.
We haven't
Temporarily-
estimated yet
No, they're
how
on-
many taps they would use.
No, they're
or-
on pause. We haven't had much communication with them lately.
They're on hold yet.
Maybe if we could add, was Federal Stone on that list? If we could
Yes.
add Federal,
We- It was on there. Wasn't it?
no, so if we could just add maybe Federal Stone and Rudders on here, I think.
I thought we did both. I thought we did rudders because I had the engineer do rudders because it was a little different.
Reaver, Otts, Duncan, Silo Hill, Christ Community Church, Dollar General, and Insurance Broker.
Okay. We did rudders. We just didn't include it then.
Yeah, if we could maybe list Rudders, Federal Stone, And then any others that were done in the last year? Maybe that's all that's
So,
missing.
yeah, that's all we got. We can certainly do Rudders and Federal Stone and just send it to the board in an email. So you have it. Does that work?
That would be great.
Works for me. Okay, any other comments on it?
No?
Beth, anything else on it? We're good?
No, as far as impact to the budget, I don't think it's going to be, a significant impact to the budget because a lot of them, when we worked with the engineers, they came about fairly close. Some were a little higher, some were a little lower. The big thing is it's going to make the calculations, I think, more accurate to what the actual establishment is using. I think this is the right approach for the town. So we can put those numbers together and then alphabetize the chart for the next meeting.
Perfect.
Right. All right, well, then that takes us on to our next agenda item, our final agenda item, actually. For consideration approval of ordinance 25-05, change of time for the Parks and Recreation Committee meetings. Well, this ought to be a long topic.
Yeah, I think that the committees, voted on themselves and that's the time that they want. And it's the half an hour change. I don't think it's.
We've changed them all.
Yeah.
This is the last one. So. Is there any objections to the ordinance?
No.
Do I have a motion to accept the ordinance?
I make a motion to accept the ordinance to amend Title 13 of the Code of the Emmitsburg entitled Streets, Sidewalks, Public Places, Parks, and Recreation Committee.
I'll second.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
3-0. We're done. All right, so the next agenda item then, before I say we're done, is to set the next meeting's agenda items.
Okay, thank you. This will be for April 7th. Administrative business number 1 will be an update on town-owned rental properties. That was a request from the board. I have 3 consent agendas items. They're all going to be proclamation. For consideration, approval of proclamation declaring April 2025 Child Abuse Prevention Month. Number 2 will be a proclamation declaring April 22nd, 2025 birthday in the town of Emmitsburg. And the last proclamation, approval of proclamation declaring April 2025 Fair Housing Month. For agenda items, I have 5 items. Number 1, for consideration, approval of bid for the replacement of sewer service lateral lines and cleanouts on DePaul Street. Number 2, for consideration, approval of policy 25-01, park advertising signs policy. Number 3 will be a tentative item for consideration, approval of FY26 Frederick County Sheriff's Office contract. Number 4, for consideration, approval of FY24 budget transfers. And then Clark, I have a question on the sewer on the connection fees. It does not need to be a public hearing because we're not changing the amount charged, just the way it calculated.
That's correct.
Okay. So the number 5 would be for consideration, approval of ordinance 25-04, water connection fees. Yes, that's what I have. All I have.
Okay.
When do we want to revisit the rental registration?
I think we do that first after we get some comments here and give them time to draft it. So probably not to April, May, probably May.
Okay, not on April 7th.
I don't think April 7th will have time.
Yeah, we're right now starting all the budget work, so.
I think May, and that'll depend upon the budget itself.
Correct. Yes.
Mr. Hagan, you have any other questions, comments, or for items? Commissioner Turnquist, have anything? All right, the only one I have then is for the, I think we brought this up, is the FY 26, right? Coming up, FY 26
Mhm.
water rates. We've had discussions back and forth of what to do with the water rates, back and forth of leaving them as they are, as they were voted on some time ago, or altering that. So I would like to have at least a discussion on that and discussion in some kind of direction, at least not an ordinance or anything, just a discussion and direction, a blessing or whatever. So I'd like to have that as at least as a discussion item.
Then I need some direction of what other information that you might need. Or that has maybe not already been provided, or if you need additional copies of what's already been provided.
I'm not sure that anything's needed, really needed.
Okay,
It's for this board to decide, to how they wish to proceed or alter or what it may be. I don't think town staff owes us anything on it.
Okay.
Am I wrong on that?
I think personally, if I'm going to discuss the water rates, there is information that I would want to look at to determine which way to go with the water rates, whether we need to increase it, decrease it, or keep it the same. I would need to see data. So I can certainly ask for that data ahead of time.
What kind of data let's ask, what kind of data are you looking for? Give direction now.
Probably updating some of the documents that have been provided in the past. An estimate of how much do we expect to come in for tap fees. We're going to have almost 50 homes coming up through Emmett Ridge and 10 through Brookfield. So that will be coming in FY 26. So that will affect our water fund.
you can't base your
But
budget
that-
off your connection fees, though.
That's exactly right.
Right.
So that was trying.
And
to
Emmett Ridge, I would not believe that you'll get them in FY 26. Because there's a lot of work to do for Emmett Ridge for it to come to fruition. Your Brookfield, yes.
one or two. not
Yeah,
many,
they
not
talked like it
many.
would be maybe January 2026. They would start with the construction.
Not for Emmett Ridge, I doubt.
Definitely not Emmett Ridge.
Mm-mm. Brookfield, I think you'll definitely get at least a couple of them in FY 26.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't think
and-
you'll get Emmett Ridge, though.
Yeah, and
But that's connection stuff. That's capital stuff. That's not going to be your water.
well, it's also for maintenance. Our tap fees are used for maintenance and repairs, and we discussed this at our last meeting. So it does impact our water fund.
It does.
And when we look
It
at
can. It
rates,
can.
I'm sorry.
Yes, it can.
And when we look at rates, water rates, it's been discussed, by this board that we need to take into consideration the state of our water system and how old it is and our infrastructure. So it all kind of comes together at the end
Okay.
of the day, right? Because if we don't have money in our water fund for a leak, a repair, then we're going to have to get that money from somewhere. Last year we had looked at the employees that charge time to the water and sewer fund. So I'd like to see an update of that list to see where we panned out over the last fiscal year. I'd probably want to look at our interest income again to see if we want to consider updating our policy. So
We are working on that one for FY 26. That one will be updated, but we're already seeing interest rate goes down already. At this point, we're already about, I think Kim told me $8,000 less in interest than we were this time last year. And it's slowly going down, but we are looking for the FY 26 budget to change the calculations for interest to more adequately reflect balances in each fund. So that is something we are doing.
And then we've also talked in the past about looking at the water bills for the town properties as well as the gratis accounts. Now, it may be that if we look at the water and sewer plants, the amount of their water usage could very well be equal to the town property water usage. So therefore it's a wash. But if it's upside down one way or another, we should consider making those adjustments to our water fund. So I think there's definitely things for me that I would take into consideration on setting the rate for the next fiscal year.
Okay,
And I can certainly ask for those things.
okay.
Or if you just want to discuss it and then ask for those
Mhm.
things, I can do that as well.
Yeah, if we could get, I know, 'cause people stop me all the time about the water. If we could just, if what our delinquency rate is in the water and has it gone up?
We don't shut anybody off anymore.
Right.
We've had
but
no
are-
shut-offs since Mayor Davis took office.
Right, but is anybody, are we still, even though I agree and understand not shutting it off, but are people still unable to pay it? And has that amount dollar or by account number gone up?
No, it's about the same.
Okay.
Anything else?
I would like an email on what she's looking for though, so I can relay that to Kim.
Commissioner Turnco's going to do. Okay,
I think we've put most of that together already.
Yes.
no problem.
You've provided it all before in prior years. It's probably just little updates to it.
Very good. Okay. Does anybody have any additional agenda items they'd like to reconsider for April 7th meeting? Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the agenda items for April 7th, which would be the Sir Lionel DePaul Street, park signs, police contract, budget transfers, ordinance 25-04, water connection fee, as we discussed this evening, and the water and tap sewer rates that we just had a little bit of discussion about just now. Do I have a motion to accept those items for April 7th agenda?
Are we adding discussion of water rates?
Yes, item number 6.
So moved.
Okay, we have a second?
Seconded.
All right, any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 3-0. And with that, that ends tonight's meeting. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it very much.
You're not
Ends-
done.
Ends the nice meeting for you all. And I have a closing statement here to make. Then I'll do adjournment. All right, a closing statement here. We now turn our final agenda item. The Board of Commissioners intend to meet in closed session to discuss applications for real property. This is the final agenda item, and the Board of Commissioners will not be meeting in another open session after this closed session has ended. Pursuant to the Maryland Code annotated General Provisions, Article 3-305D, prior to closing a meeting, the Commissioners must conduct a recorded vote to close the meeting and make a written statement of the reason for the closing meeting, including a citation of the authority for closing the meeting under Maryland Code annotated General Provisions, Article 3-305B, and a listing of the topics to be discussed. I will now read the proposed closing statement, which has been prepared by staff. The topic to be discussed during the closed meeting is for real property. The authority of the meeting is closed session for this purpose in Maryland Code annotated General Provisions, Article 3-30B3, which authorizes the Board of Commissioners to meet in closed session to consider the acquisition of real property for public purposes and matters directly related thereof. The purpose will be to get direction from the board on a possible purchase of a vacant lot on South Seaton Avenue. Do I hear a motion to adopt the closing statement as read and to enter into a closed meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion in favor, 3-0. All right. So we will be going in closed session. So